David Hanson, a smug white manager with everything he thought he was entitled to, didn't know that the janitor he regularly belittled was not who she seemed. He didn't know that Sarah Taylor was an undercover inspector, sent to expose the corrupt and racist practices running rampant in his department. One careless racist gesture, tossing her lunch into the trash, would be the mistake that led to his downfall. What she did next will shock even the most hardened souls. But let's start at the beginning. Sarah Taylor, 45 years old, was the kind of person who blended into the background, and she'd long ago learned to embrace it. With a solid, no-nonsense build and deep brown skin that spoke to generations of resilience, Sarah had perfected the art of quiet strength. Her brown eyes, sharp and observant, missed nothing. She saw all, absorbed all, but never spoke out of turn. She was practical, worn blue jumpsuit and scuffed sneakers, making her a silent presence in the sterile office halls, unnoticed by the high-level executives who passed her by each day. But Sarah wasn't just a janitor. She was an undercover inspector, quietly placed in this department to expose the mismanagement, corruption, and racial bias that had taken root in the very heart of the office. To the staff, she was invisible, just the woman who kept the place clean, who did her job and stayed out of the way. But what they didn't know was that she had a purpose far bigger than cleaning floors. That day, Sarah entered the break room as she had so many times before. The hum of casual chatter filled the air, but her attention was immediately drawn to David Hanson, the department manager. He was exactly what she expected. Tall, sharply dressed, with slicked-back blonde hair, and an air of arrogant entitlement. Hanson, in his late 30s, looked every bit the part of a man who thought he could say and do whatever he wanted without facing consequences. As Sarah placed her cleaning supplies on the counter, she overheard Hanson speaking to his assistant, his voice dripping with disdain. "Someone needs to finally put that lazy janitor in her place," he said, clearly irritated. Sarah's stomach tightened, but she didn't react. He went on, "I'm so tired of seeing her take these long lunch breaks. She doesn't even do her job right half the time." And then, without hesitation, Hanson grabbed Sarah's lunch bag off the counter and tossed it in the trash. "No lunch today, I guess," he smirked. Sarah didn't flinch. She didn't say a word. She simply gathered her supplies and gave him one cold look, one that, for a brief moment, made Hanson feel a flicker of doubt. He had no idea who he was really dealing with. This would be the mistake he'd regret for the rest of his life. A week passed, and Sarah kept her head down, doing her job as usual. But things were heating up. Hanson's department was a mess. Employees were complaining about unsafe working conditions, and his management style was nothing short of toxic. She'd heard whispers in the break room about employees being pushed to their limits, working through breaks, and being reprimanded if they dared to speak up. It was clear that Hanson was running a tight ship, but it wasn't a ship anyone wanted to be on. One afternoon, while cleaning the men's restroom, Sarah overheard a heated argument between Hanson and one of the employees, a young black woman named Monica. Monica had been with the company for years, but was now seeking legal help to file a formal grievance against Hanson for racial discrimination. Sarah could barely make out the words, but she caught enough to know that Monica was being pressured to stay silent, her complaints dismissed as petty and ungrateful. "Just stick it out. You've got a good position here. You really want to throw all that away?" Hanson's voice was sharp, but Monica wasn't backing down. "I'm not the one who's going to be thrown out, Mr. Hanson," she shot back. "This place is toxic, and you know it." Sarah's heart sank, but a part of her admired Monica's courage. She had to act fast. If Hanson was harassing employees, He'd already crossed a line. She began gathering evidence, photocopies of documents, photos of unsanitary conditions, and recorded conversations. But it wasn't just the workplace issues that bothered her. Hanson's behavior toward her, the way he belittled her, treated her like an invisible woman, was personal now, and she wouldn't let it slide. Sarah had been watching Hanson closely for days. His arrogance was obvious. He'd hold meetings with his staff and bark orders, all while making degrading comments about employees, particularly women of color. He thought he was untouchable. But what he didn't know was that Sarah was building a case, and she wasn't alone. Monica had confided in Sarah about the secret recordings she had of Hanson's discriminatory remarks. Together, they were about to bring him down. On a particularly tense afternoon, Sarah was cleaning near Hanson's office when she heard raised voices. It was Monica again, and this time, she wasn't backing down. "You can't keep treating us like this," Monica shouted. "Just shut up and do your job, okay?" Hanson snapped back. "I'm done being quiet," Monica said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You can't treat people this way anymore." Sarah stepped forward and caught the tail end of the exchange. As Monica stormed out, Sarah made a decision. She walked right up to Hanson's office and knocked firmly. He looked up in surprise. "Yes?" "I need to talk to you," Sarah said, her voice cold and steady. He looked her up and down dismissively. "What's this about?" "You're about to lose your job. You're about to lose your department," she said, staring him down. Hanson chuckled, clearly dismissing her. "You're crazy." "Maybe. But I've got evidence. And I've got a lot more coming your way." A few days later, Sarah's investigation report was filed, and the department was officially under review. The higher-ups were not pleased when they learned about Hanson's toxic management, his racist behavior, and the way he'd treated Sarah. But the real shock came when Sarah's undercover status was revealed. She wasn't just a janitor. She was a senior inspector, sent in by the company's oversight division. The investigation, which had started with a single insult about her lunch, had turned into a full-blown scandal. Hanson's department was shut down, and the company issued a public apology for allowing such an environment to exist. In a final twist, Sarah, who had been dismissed by Hanson as just a janitor, became the hero of the story. Monica, too, was vindicated when her complaint became the centerpiece of a larger campaign for employee rights and racial justice within the company. Hanson? Well, his smug smile vanished when he was escorted out of the building by security. He'd spent years building a reputation as an untouchable leader, but he was now just another cautionary tale. As for Sarah, she walked out of the building that day with her head held high. The lunch she had been denied a week earlier seemed insignificant now. What mattered was that, in the end, the tables had turned.